Hi, welcome to Got Questions? I'm Parker, friend and right-hand man to Dr. William DePaolo, and that's MD, not MD. He's not a doctor. That's PhD, not MD, and he's an immunologist at the University of Washington Medical Center in Seattle, Washington, also known as the UW. So in the second part of this first episode, we'll talk about starting CMiST, the Center for Microbiome Sciences and Therapeutics up at the UW. Will is center director, and I'm the communication specialist. We'll also talk a little bit about Will's research as PI, principal investigator of his own lab. But we'll really get into his research projects in the following 5 episodes. It's hard to get the words out sometimes. Anyway, I think I need more coffee. And with that, I'll give you Dr. Will DePaolo.
So we've got
well, so speaking of the projects that are so what are the projects that you have going on with the center, with CMiST, Center for Microbiome Sciences and Therapeutics?
Right.
What projects do you have going on right now? Because you have a number of them. But
collaborative projects or the
I guess collaborative projects. Actually, which is the one that you're working on right now that you find the most interesting, or the one that kind of surprised you the most, or
well, we don't have any data from a lot of them, so they're all very, very new. I think so we've had a really interesting project, and we've just got the data back looking at the microbiome of kids in Africa that are either HIV positive, born with HIV, or they're and then exposed to antibiotic or not exposed to antibiotic, and looking at their gut bacteria to see how the HIV exposure is how similar HIV exposure and the antibiotic exposure are in shaping the microbiome of those kids, and then how it plays out in sort of their secondary infections and things like that, because there's a huge mortality associated with that.
This is with Patty Pavlik?
Yeah, so it was a collaborative project with Patty Pavlik. So
you just got data back recently?
Well, we just got the 16S data back. Yeah, so we had to wait till we collected all the samples, and then
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm waiting to I have a grant due on June 5th, and so I'm waiting for that to get done, and then I'm going to ask Ian to do the bioinformatic analysis to see if there's anything there. So we'll have some data. So that one's kind of fun because I love Africa. I've been to Africa a number of times, and I feel very drawn to Africa. I must have had a past life or something in Africa. Well, I guess we all kind of Africa.
Sure. Yeah.
Middle East Africa. Are just way descendants. But yeah, so that was kind of a fun project. And then I think right now I'm working on a burn project with Harborview and a couple of researchers, Dr. Barkley and Long. And so their hypothesis is that people who have massive burns, 20% of their body covered in burns. I guess there's they found either skin. They're looking at both skin microbiomes, and then I think we're expecting some gut bacteria to have in the systemic circulation and things like that. So it's going to be a really interesting study. And the nice thing there is that with burn victims, so usually they burn an arm or a hand, and then then you have the other arm and the hand as the control.
Oh,
so
right.
If they burn their shoulder on the right side, you have the left side to use as a control, which is I think.
Wait, the question. These are fire burns, not chemical burns, or are they?
They're fire burns.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
I think they said it they were expecting a lot around 4th of July and a lot in the
Okay. So yeah, fire burns.
The portable heaters, people put them under their desks and then their legs catch on fire. So I shouldn't laugh because it's really awful. But,
no, it is. But yes.
But yeah, the image is kind of South Parkish in a way.
Would there be a difference between a chemical burn and a fire burn? Who knows? I'm
sure that they're going to have different effects on the bacteria there. Maybe, I don't know. It's such a strong, I feel maybe it won't because it's such a strong, it's such a severe thing to have that skin burn that I think maybe it just decimates it regardless of chemical or flammable, whatever.
Yeah.
What's the opposite of chemical?
I don't have anything in mind.
Okay. So yeah, so that study is kind of interesting. And then so I would say, those two studies, and then we're working on an IBD study to get it off the ground, where we're looking at patients with inflammatory bowel disease, and they're either fail therapy, so they go on a biological therapy that's supposed to help fix the disease, and they either fail that biological therapy, or their disease goes away. And we're looking at the microbiome along the way, and this over like an 18-month period, to try to get a gauge of whether, to get a gauge if we can do something predictive. So before they get the biologic, we'll have some data, and then we'll know whether or not these guys failed therapy, and then we'll know the microbiome at the end also. So we can kind of see who was there before and who was there after, and if there's any correlation with success rates. So that's kind of an interesting project also. So those are probably my top three projects there. So yeah.
So then with the center, with CMiST, what, because I think all of these projects are important, and there are a number of other things that we have going on. And so what, in your opinion, is one of the other most important aspects besides the research?
Of CMiST.
Of CMiST, yeah.
Okay.
And what do you think is, when you were established, because we did it together, but when we were putting this together, what was one of the things that you wanted to make sure that CMiST did or worked towards? Or
so I think so back when they recruited me to do the center for Microbiome Sciences and Therapeutics, and there was not a title. I came up with that acronym on a Saturday.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna pat myself on the back here, because I had a thought about the acronym, and I remember I either emailed you or called you when we were talking, because we were hashing out the acronym for months. It was such a long time. It was so frustrating. I remember we were talking about it in a restaurant up in Seattle. When you were brought up there. But I did say, what if you took for one of the words, not just the first letter, but the first two letters?
And that changed it. And then I thought it was big, and I also saw it at some other centers did that too. Like I saw the MI and the SC. But anyway,
sorry. Go ahead. No, but I do still have the email then where you sent 6 or 8 different acronyms, and I said no, we got to go with CMiST because of Seattle and having missed all the time. Okay, fine. 99%.
Today it's misty. So basically, I was starting something from scratch. There was absolutely no group on campus that was doing any microbiome work. There were researchers doing microbiome stuff, but they were spread throughout multiple sites, multiple campuses, multiple collaborative institutions. And so I had to get up there and just basically try to meet everybody that was working on the microbiome, because I really wanted the center to be inclusive. And I think that the inclusivity and the creativity were the two things that I really wanted to highlight there, as well as maybe being a little bit outside the box thinking. And so the inclusivity, was we don't turn people away from our meetings, really. I mean, if you're at Fred Hutch, if you're at ISB, if you're at any other institution and you want to attend, you just have to present your data also at some point, and you can attend our bi-weekly meetings. And so I think it was important to create these cross institutional collaborations and to see what other people are doing at other institutions. So that was important. And then the creativity, I think, is just sometimes science, scientists can be a little bit boring and a little bit talking just about this one little molecule that does one little thing and then doesn't really pertain to anything big in the world, but yet they can find funding for it because it's regulated with some disease. But they've never ever seen a patient with that disease, but it's associated with that, so they cite it in their grants, which I have a big problem with all of these parts of this process. But
we could get into that maybe in some future episodes. I said we could maybe get into some of that in future episodes. I've seen some interesting takes recently on grants and papers and that sort of thing about what people are thinking, people meeting scientists about the whole process.
So I had to start from where was I? Lost my train of thought now. So
you had to bring
the creativity. So I wanted to. So scientists can be a little bit boring or dull, and and the new generation is not as boring and dull, but I can tell you some of my colleagues are boring and dull. And so, so maybe not current colleagues, but previous colleagues. I'll just watch myself there.
Good save.
But,
Good save.
yeah, so the creativity I think is important because it helps you with your science, and we were doing some art and science stuff with an artist in residency in LA, and I've been doing some stuff with BuzzFeed, and so to have that creative outlet I think is important, and it helps to outreach with the community, which is part of that creativity. So like working with what we do best is like the science, but it's got a public health sort of spin, and how to dictate or how to educate the public about what we're doing, and then how that's relevant to like their bodies and their health. I think is really important, and a good lesson for all scientists to have to try to do that, because scientists fail at describing studies to people all the time, like normal people that, you know, don't know the jargon of the CD this and the TH that's and the whatever. So so I think those were the big things of the center that I really wanted to focus on, was the inclusivity, the creativity, and sort of that highlighting the art and sort of communication to the public.
So speaking of communicating to the lay audience, which is me, of course, I do go to Microbiome Club every week, and I admittedly get to a point where I'm tuning out a little bit, because it's a different language. I get that something's upregulated, downregulated, what have you, but I tune it out a little bit. But having gone to many microbiome clubs at this point, because that we're in is this the third year of Microbiome Club? Yeah. I'm curious to know, what is a project that you've been, I guess, wowed by? Like, what really sparked your interest?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so for those of you listening that might not know, Microbiome Club is our so it's a sort of forum that occurs bi-weekly, so that and it's open to anybody who has data that wants to present, but it's raw data, and so you have to present your raw data, and shouldn't be previously published, and it should be a work in progress, so that people can see over time your project grow, and then build sort of trust with each other and all that sort of thing. So it's one of the cornerstones, I think, of the microbiome program here at UW and for CMiST. So there are so many interesting projects, and like this year has been like overwhelming with the number of people that have been attending and presenting. So it's hard for me to choose one thing that I thought was super interesting. I really like the story we heard about the periodontal stuff, the oral cavity.
Oh, from Jeff's lab.
Yeah, and looking at how and using like one half of the person's mouth as a control, and the other half. I am obsessed with this.
Having one person be their own control is like your new thing. You're gonna try and find all new collaborations where you can just have.
But the poor things, they can't brush their teeth for however long, and like
it was like 3 weeks.
Only half their teeth, half their mouth. So I thought I really liked that story, because you know they're doing exactly what I think the next step should be, which following up on some of the results that they found, like with the chemokines and things like that. But you know, I think all the stuff I've been hearing lately have been really good. There's nothing really that sticks out, you know, for me as like they're all really good and they're all really worthwhile. And I think that it's great to hear all of this stuff happening on campus, and like it's been growing since we got here. And I'd like to think that CMiST was the catalyst for some of this growth, you know. So.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, because when we first started these meetings in that meeting room, there were 12 to 15 at most, 20 people or so, and now we have up to 40 people coming to a meeting. So do you think the virtual format might via Zoom stay
I'm
Microbiome Club, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm sure a lot of companies and a lot of businesses are like reevaluating how they do meetings and how they do like work in general. And so I think this one thing that COVID did do is it made everybody reevaluate like what's necessary for like business to run. Like, is it really important to have 30 people in a room, all on their laptops with no cubicles, you know, whatever, like slaving away, but these people could be at home doing it, and then you don't have to pay for this rental space and all this other stuff. Like, there's a lot of overhead that you cut down. So, but then there's other things that you have to pay for, I'm sure. But I think now as people are starting to turn back to these meetings where now because of being on Zoom, like we've expanded our membership from like 15 per week or 20, like up to 20 per week to over 40 per week sometimes. And so it's nearly doubled. And it's just because it's much easier for people, especially up here in Seattle, where we have multiple different institutions like the Fred Hutch Center for Cancer Center, the Institute for Systems Biology, and Seattle Children's Hospital, so Seattle Children's Research Center, whatever. They're all distinct sort of campuses that are spread throughout the city. And so it's easier to hop on a Zoom than to try to get a shuttle to go to UW for like an hour and then like get a shuttle back or whatever.
I mean, so it's great to be in person, but to transportate yourself like that, it's
so what I think I'd like to do is explore options where we have the people that want to come can come, and then we do like an intermediate thing where we have the people that are remote, like based on Zoom, and then we have the room with the people that are present on the campus, and if they want to come, they can come. It can be open to everyone. If you can't make it, just turn your Zoom on and you can still be part of it. So I think I'm looking at maybe making it be a little bit more of a mixed, like a Franken meeting, like a Franken meeting. So like sort of the best of both worlds, I guess.
Well, and it might be fun to even have the first meeting of the year and the last meeting of the year be in person. If anything, I can tell you're yawning. It's
no, sorry.
It's making me want to yawn.
I didn't sleep well last night, so I was like trying to keep the yawn.
No. But I think that's a good place to stop, because I think at this point we could get into some more of the specifics of your research, like DePaolo Lab research, because let's see, the end of Microbiome Club this year, Melissa is going to be presenting her project, which I know that that is currently in the process of being published, correct? Or reviewed?
Yeah, so it's a project looking at the microbiome associated with pre-neoplastic colonic polyps. So basically the polyps that they remove when you go in for your colonoscopy, your routine screening. So there's a discrepancy between the fact that we have routine colonoscopies, yet colorectal cancer is still a third leading cause of death in the United States. So despite having these screenings, people are still dying from colorectal cancer. So there's something missing there. So we've decided to start looking at the bacteria as ways to predict whether or not somebody has polyp. So not even cancer, way earlier than that. So we're trying to really come up with something that can be paired with the colonoscopy or be used in tandem or separately, just to kind of like let it's like just a due diligence. Like, yeah, they have no polyps by colonoscopy, and then their microbiome does not look like it has a signature of cancer or like a polyp. So like we're looking for basically, and we didn't really talk about what the microbiome is or anything this episode, I guess.
No, we can maybe let's do that, then we can line up the next episode.
Yeah,
we'll talk
we can start with the microbiome, like just
like an overview. Yeah.
I can tie in my projects to that. So basically that's the project that Melissa's working on, and that's the one that's under review right now. That it's looking pretty good for publication soon. So that'll be nice.
TBD.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, thank you, Dr. DePaolo. I don't think I've ever called you Dr. DePaolo ever in my life.
Probably not.
No, I'm not. That's going to be my first and last time, if that's okay with you.
Right. Well, I think it's important to just end on the note that like these are meant to be informative, and sometimes they'll express my opinions and your opinions on things that it's not anything. It's not the University of Washington's opinion. They're strictly our own opinions, and this is a little bit separate from the University of Washington. But it's just a chance to be able to get out there and just to sort of let people know what we're researching and what we're working on. But then also, eventually this could turn into where we, take questions, or we have so that like if you're watching this and you have questions, like send us a note and I can expand on something that I touched upon briefly and you want to know more, or you can tell me that I was too long-winded here or there and just follow up. That's fine. Whatever you want to tell me. But other than that, I think, it's a fun way for us to get together again to chat about this stuff and to start just kind of educating other people about what we're doing and what the microbiome is and what it can be used for.
Yeah, no, what I'll do is I'll actually include a link to get in touch and reach out, because if somebody else besides me has got some questions, they can just shoot me a note via the whatever link I send. So yeah, I think that's good. Okay, cool.
Great.
Thank you.
Well,
all right. Bye.
Signing out. I feel like I should have a catchy like sign off, but I don't. So I haven't thought of one yet.
Don't
So.
come up with one. All right, bye.
Bye.
Well, this first episode in 2 parts is a pretty good summary of who is Dr. William DePaolo. In the next episode, we'll do a little foundation to give you a basic microbiome education. I also asked Will what his opinions are on how the news and social media report on the microbiome. Like, are they really talking about one biome, like one microbial community, the one that maybe lives in the gut? I'm curious to know what Will's opinion is about that. So definitely check out the microbiome. If you want to learn more about CMiST, the Center for Microbiome Sciences and Therapeutics up there at the UW, check out the website at cmistuw.org. And there's also a little information on the show notes of the podcast website, yourgutquestions.com. If you've got questions for Will, let me know. Let me know in the comments or through the contact page on the Gut Questions website, or email me directly at aparker@medicine.washington.edu. And all of these links will be in the podcast description. See ya.